I think very broadly, I used to have this perception that in principle, the opposition parties are quite against the NCMP scheme. But working on this book, I seem to think that over the years, or at least what is recorded in this book, is that, at least for Mr. Leong yourself, there is kind of like an open attitude towards how the scheme can innovate. And wanted you to respond to this. Tell us a bit more about this idea that you've told the book authors, and also in response to what is happening around in the world, specifically the example that Prof. Woon mentioned. Tell us, how do you envision, for example, opposition members in Parliament? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you from Man Wai to Wai Man. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the reason why I passed you the mic first.
Yeah. Indeed, it's an honor to talk to so many of our fellow Singaporeans who are so interested in our political development. I'm currently serving as an NCMP. So the NCMP scheme has generated a lot of controversy since its inception. And that is because I think nobody would not agree that it is a good scheme that if you used it in the form of an affirmative action. Not enough opposition in Singapore, so we need to provide a scheme to have more voices in Parliament. I think that is very positive for our political development. And I think subsequently, all those who have accepted the NCMP appointment, even though I think many of them are against it, they have accepted it because they want to do something for Singapore, for the political development of Singapore. Yeah. However, the controversy comes from the fact that many things the PAP government do for us, there is a political motive. Okay. So while they're introducing the scheme, their reasoning is that they are telling Singaporeans that you don't need opposition MPs, you don't need fully elected MPs, because we already provided you with NCMPs. That is something that generated the controversies. And of course, from the opposition camp, we'll be very concerned, because if that message gets through to the Singaporeans, then you will not have real opposition in Parliament, because afterwards we can discuss further. An elected MP and an NCMP, after all, is very different. Okay? So that's one thing to start off by saying, what is the NCMP scheme about? As specifically to Waiman's question, the NCMP scheme, you take it from a political development perspective. I think Professor Walter Woon has also spoken on that, and many of you have also noticed, and I think it's very well documented in this fine book written by the authors. We all know that in the world, as part of democratic development, like what Professor have said just now, the problem with the first past the post system is that often the minorities are being ignored. But if you want democracy to work, you actually must give more room for the minority voices to be heard. Minority here do not just refer to races. You also have other things like cultures, different cultures. When a society becomes more diverse, you have a lot of cultures developed, other than the traditional races. You have specific issues about immigration, things like that. So all these issues are what we call minority segments, minority groups that can develop, within every country, especially when a country becomes more sophisticated and mature like ours. And there will be more opinions and all that. And all these opinions cannot be just swept away. You must have room for all these opinions, especially when all these opinions have gathered a critical mass, like 10% of the population, 20% of the population is in support of a particular issue. Then that voice must be heard properly. And the pinnacle of democracy of every country is the parliament. So that's why we must have the voice, those voices heard in parliament. Okay, so as a result, then we have to explore what is the systems currently already in place, being practiced by other countries with much success. Their past experience tells us it's successful. And among all these things, I think the proportional representation is the best system. I won't say the best system. I think it's widely practiced, and I think it's very reasonable. And just to jump to the conclusion, one of the things that I want to say today is that if we introduce a proportional representation in Singapore, most likely we can kill two birds with one stone. You don't need a GRC system, right? Because the race issue can be taken care of. Just like what is written in the book, Mauritius used some form of the NCMP system to take care of the racial representation. The other thing you do not need to worry about the minority voices. You can address the minority voices also. Okay, so you kill two birds with one stone. And I think what I'm hoping is that Hazel and I will be the last NCMP.